Arguably, the biggest highlight of the 2010s decade was the rise of social media, with Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and now TikTok allowing large platforms for communication. Our world is a very different place than it was 10 years ago. On March 15th, 2009, Charlie Villanueva tweeted this: "In the locker room, snuck to post my twit. We're playing the Celtics tie ball game at the half. Coach wants more toughness, I gotta step up." Twitter has certainly come a long way since Charlie Villanueva snuck into his locker room to post his tweet. At the end of 2009, Twitter had about 18 million active users, and 10 years later, they now have over 300 million. And with this increase of online user engagement, the NBA and its players have been well involved. Because of this trend, certain players who would not normally receive much attention have been able to use social media to drastically increase their popularity in the public eye. As with the way the NBA is a 24/7 news cycle, Twitter and Instagram have proven to be the perfect platforms for fans around the world to discuss what is happening in the NBA right now. That is what the creators of both Twitter and Instagram expected. However, what they didn't expect was that their apps would also cause some shocking NBA celebrities, as no name has arguably been as big in the 2020 season as Alex Caruso. Because despite the fact that this season he averaged less than 6 points per game, Alex Caruso has over 1 million Instagram followers and has become a social media force. The Bald Mamba, Caruso, whatever you want to call this man, Alex Caruso is right up there in terms of popularity with some of the top stars in the league. But Caruso isn't even looking for the spotlight. As he told Bleacher Report, "I'm not Hollywood. I think I fit a market like San Antonio or Charlotte or Milwaukee where it's a little more low-key. It's just funny that this is where I am. It's funny that it's LA." The Alex Caruso hype train has certainly reached its peak this season, because in terms of fan voting for the 2020 Western Conference All-Star backcourt, Caruso finished 4th behind Luka Doncic, James Harden, and Damian Lillard. Now, to give Alex Caruso some credit, he is a legitimate rotation player for the Lakers and was 4th on their team in plus-minus. Moving on from Alex Caruso though, another social media sensation that can relate to Caruso in terms of popularity in 2020 is of course Taco Fall. Fall, a 7'6" center, became an instant social media celebrity when he showcased his skills during the 2019 Summer League. Because of this, despite the fact that he barely even played in the NBA this season, when it came to the 2020 NBA All-Star fan vote, Taco Fall finished 6th for the Eastern Conference for front court players. The thing is though, Taco has stated publicly that if he did get into the All-Star game off of a fan vote, he would have rejected that opportunity. He said, "I definitely would have rejected it. There is no way I'm going to take the spot of like a Devin Booker, a Bradley Beal, those people that most people feel like should have been an All-Star. And then you have some rookie who barely plays 5 minutes a game just take a spot? I didn't want that to happen." Taco checked in for the first time in a regular season game on December 20th of this season, and when he did, Celtics fans gave him a standing ovation for over a minute. Despite his limited skill as an NBA player, Taco has turned himself into a phenomenon. Yet another example of how in the age of social media, players are expanding outside of the court into other areas of business, not just sports. Let's now talk about J.R. Smith, because before the bubble, the last time J.R. Smith had played in the NBA was nearly 2 years ago. Despite this fact, J.R. Smith has remained in the news and in the spotlight, and this perhaps played a part in his return to the Lakers, where he is of course playing alongside fellow social media phenom Alex Caruso. Unlike Caruso though, Smith does have a history of proving himself on the court. He's played in nearly 1,000 NBA games and averaged about 12.5 points per game for his career. Still though, what puts JR in discussion for this video is potentially the biggest mistake in NBA postseason history. Because with 4.8 seconds left in Game 1 of the 2018 NBA Finals, the Warriors and Cavs were tied when George Hill of the Cleveland Cavaliers missed a free throw. However, J.R. Smith was there to grab the offensive rebound and had the chance to shock the world in a Game 1 upset. Only instead, in a very embarrassing move, J.R. turned around and ran out the clock. This play quickly went viral on social media, and so did LeBron James' reaction. Because of this, the spotlight only shined brighter on JR, and then, after the Cavaliers would continue to go on and be swept, it seemed that J.R. Smith's career was all but over, as he only played in 11 games the next season. But if you think this affected JR, well, think again. On the All the Smoke podcast in 2019, JR was quoted as saying, "I laughed about that night. I'm not a person to hold on to." Moving forward past J.R. Smith though, Bol Bol first came into national prominence in the 7th grade when he was just 12 years old. Standing at 6'5" at the time, Bol looked like an absolute cheat code on the court, and as we know, Bol would continue growing and now stands at 7'2". And because of his enormous size, combined with his ability to handle the ball and shoot three-pointers, when people started watching Bol's high school mixtapes, he too instantly became a social media phenom. With that said, unlike some other players on this list, as a high school prospect, Bol had the talent to back up his popularity. He was named a top 5 prospect in high school, and then in college, Bol would average around 21 points, 10 rebounds, and 3 blocks per game while shooting 52% from 3. Unfortunately though, because of a stress fracture, Bol would only play in 9 games and slid from a potential top 5 pick to someone who, because of their social media popularity, became a meme on draft night as he was taken in the 2nd round. On the night of that draft, as player after player was selected before Bol, Twitter erupted as Bol was all anyone could talk about. By the time he was selected, the crowd at the draft was nearly empty, but Bol took this in stride with a great mindset. As after he was taken in the 2nd round, he was quoted as saying, "I just want to prove everyone wrong and come out and be the best player I can be." And ironically, when the reporter of this interview asked Bol to describe what he meant further, Bol said, "You guys have seen that on YouTube." Of course though, as we know, Bol's YouTube highlights are not going to help him succeed in the NBA. Throughout time, there have been countless high school mixtape legends who have not lived up to the hype in the NBA, so in order for Bol not to fall into this category, he was going to have to step up his game. And step up his game he certainly did, because after a successful G League stint, Bol was called up to the Denver Nuggets roster, and in his first game in the bubble, he would finish with 16 points, 10 rebounds, and 6 blocks. And yes, this was a scrimmage, but despite this, Twitter still went crazy, and Bol became one of the top trending topics in the entire United States. Which means to me, at this point, Bol's progression as a player is moving at a steady pace. I think we are all very excited to watch Bol's future, but for now, let's finish up with a player who has used social media for the greater good. Because platforms like Twitter and Instagram have allowed fans to connect with players like never before. And some of these interactions have been rather interesting, as I'm sure there are a lot of fans who love Jared Dudley. Because on social media, Jared Dudley sets himself apart from other players. He does this by spending nearly $20,000 every year on tickets to give away to fans. And in order to choose what lucky fans receive tickets, Dudley evaluates nearly every single request he gets on social media. And the word "every" there is not an exaggeration, because as Jared Dudley himself has said, there's hundreds to decide from. I go through all of them. People think I don't. I go through all of them. Whatever touches the heart that day. A perfect example of this comes in the form of Isaac Ventura, a 19-year-old sophomore who jokingly made a request on November 19th to watch the Lakers play. Dudley saw this request and gave Isaac 2 tickets, one for him and one for his girlfriend, giving Isaac's girlfriend a chance to watch her first NBA game ever. What's even more insane about this story is that these tickets were 1 row behind courtside. This meant that Isaac ended up receiving fist bumps from Quavo and Offset of Migos. The concept of a fan favorite is nothing new. For decades, fans have loved to cheer for bench warmers who importantly stood out in some way. Which means what I'm saying here is that the potential for lesser talented but unique players to become extremely popular was always there. We just needed social media to unlock it.